The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
Jabron.
From the FBI, the School of Rifle from Staten Island, New York, coming straight everywhere, the Pavarotti of hard stuff, the party of Python, got it going on.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Welcome to Vince Russo's The Brand. This is Jeff Lane. I'm the guy who's once again filling in for Vince Russo. He's ill, must be because the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl again. That almost made me sick. But of course, this is Getting Color, and the star of the show, Big Vito LaGrasso. Vito, what is up today, my man?
How is everybody doing? And welcome to another great Getting Color. Vince Russo on the DL once again. I'm telling you, it might be the 30-day disabled list, maybe the 60, but the show must go on. Vince Russo has the sniffles, can't make it. Hope we can keep the brand going. I might have to fill into him for tomorrow for the Raw SmackDown review and really bring the ratings up. I don't know what's up with Vince. You know, what is he doing different? He's sleeping with a fan on, having a window open. He's sleeping with a pinky toe exposed. The guy's always sick. What's going on with this guy?
I don't know, but he said he's got the flu, so that could be pretty serious. So hope you're doing better, Vince.
I hope you are doing better, Vince. You know, guys like you at your age, you know, Geritol. You know, my grandfather used it, my father used it, my father's fathers used it. You know, so Vince, try some Geritol. It might help you, you know? And well, onions, rub onions on your chest, Vince. Go ahead.
You go. Yeah, before we get into the topics of today's show, Vito, we know the Super Bowl now. The Patriots and the Eagles. You got an early prediction on that one?
After watching Brady, now you knew Brady was going to come back in the fourth quarter. Everybody knew this. Everybody saw it. You knew it was happening. Amendola is probably the most underrated football player on the planet because he's the go-to guy. He's the glue of that team. You know, and then they have James Harrison, you know, being a linebacker for them. Those guys can't be beat. And you know what? The thing with the hand injury for Brady, it was so fugazi. Yeah, I got this bandage. I got this little cut. I bet it's a friggin' scrape, and he's got nothing just to make everybody worry. Just like they had all the controversy on how they were going to break the band up, which was another big BS story. And then the Eagles. Let me tell you something. You got to be happy for Nick Foles because he's going to the Super Bowl. He brought the team back to the Super Bowl. Now, do they stand a chance against the Patriots? What do you think?
I just can't pick New England. It's in my DNA. So we're going to go with Philadelphia. What I really think is, despite the great play he made at the end of the game, I think Foles is going to pick apart Stephon Gilmore. He's the most overrated cornerback in the NFL. I watched him for years in Buffalo just get destroyed on quick slants and just let people catch stuff. And I think Foles is going to pick him apart. So I'm going to go with the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I
think it's going to be another fourth quarter comeback win for the Patriots, and I say they win by 3. That's how close I think it'll be.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if it's a blowout either way. It's you know, every year, and I can't stand Tom Brady, I can't stand him, but anybody who wouldn't say he's the greatest football player of all time, not even quarterback football player of all time, you'd have to kind of question, you know, their football knowledge. The guy doesn't age. I don't know, man. It's just that he's been just destroying my 20s and 30s as a Bills fan. My entire football watching career of the past 17 years has just been awful because of this one man, Tom Brady. And, you know, the Patriots, they're going to their 10th Super Bowl, and I think this is, Brady's 8th? Because, I mean, that's just absolutely insane, man.
Now, everybody's looking at Tom Brady, okay? Now he's 40. Now, going over this year, does he win the MVP of the league this year? He had a great quarterback rating. He had I can't remember how many he had over 30 touchdowns. He had limited interceptions. He threw for good yards. Who do you give the MVP to in the league? I mean, Wentz was in the running.
That Wentz was my pick because I think the voting would be before the playoffs started. So,
Right.
I believe they do the voting when the regular season ends. So I think Wentz is going to win.
You think Wentz will win even though he missed 3-4 games?
Yes. Because I don't the Eagles wouldn't have been where they are if it wasn't for him because I think he blew all expectations away for his second year or whatever. And he played phenomenal. So, yeah, my pick is Wentz.
What about Drew Brees? He had a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
He's another one.
Do you know that with Brees, he's had like 5,000-yard seasons, and nobody else has had 2. Like second place is 1. Like that's insane.
What quarterback does he remind you of that didn't win a Super Bowl?
Oh, jeez.
He's a great quarterback.
Nobody's coming to mind.
Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Doesn't he remind you? Dan Marino.
Warren Moon was a gunslinger. They never won a Super Bowl. He was good.
Another one. I mean, I'm not going to say he's one of the all-time best, but Vinny Testaverde, he threw for some yards. He threw 1,000 yards. He was a great quarterback, but he just never could get over the hump. And it just seems like, all right, here you have Tom Brady, year in, year out, and then you have all these runner-ups every year. And I just think that Tom Brady, I think he'll go. I think this year he's going to win. I think he'll go another 2 years before you start to see a decline, just like Brett Favre. Now, Brett Favre started to break down, when he was 44?
I don't remember how old he was, but when he went to the Jets, I would say.
But he started out. But remember, when he went to the Jets, he started out like a house of fire, and he was 8-2 until he got hurt.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, if he didn't get hurt, he probably could have went 12-4.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he would have won the Super Bowl, but if he didn't get hurt, 12-4. When he went back to, what was it? When he went back to the Vikings, or was it the Green Bay?
Yeah, he went to the Vikings, which was probably a mistake. A lot of Packers fans took a while to forgive him for that.
But when he went to the Vikings, and he was, I think he had the season before, he had a great season. Then when he went to the Vikings, until he got that one big hit that wiped him out, closed him out, sealed the deal. I think that was his calling. He played one too many years, I think.
Yeah, well, in today's game, looked like Rob Gronkowski got a concussion, which led to some tweets that ended up involving you, and that's what we're going to get to today on Getting Color. But before we do that, I just want to remind everybody about the Realm Network. We got a special this Wednesday only because it is Vince's birthday. So if you're listening to this on podcast 1, that's tomorrow, Wednesday, the 24th. So just on the 24th, if you have never been a member and you sign up, you're going to get an entire month for free. Just go to russosbrand.com, click subscribe to the Realm Network. On Wednesday, the 24th, January 24th, when you add the brand to the cart, it will change the price down to $0. You'll get the first month for free with no long-term commitment, so you can opt out at any time. But after that, if you do decide to stay on, it's only $3.95 a month. It's less than $1 a week. You get all these shows on video, Getting Color. You get the Raw SmackDown review. You get Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Disco, and you get exclusively Castrating the Marks weekly. It's the only place you get it weekly, in video and audio at russosbrand.com. And, of course, you can download all these shows to keep. So, again, Wednesday the 24th, sign up. You get a free month at russosbrand.com. So, Vito, Rob Gronkowski, somebody tweeted that he was in karma protocol because I don't know if you remember in the first game against the Bills this year, he took a cheap shot at Tre'Davious White, one of our cornerbacks, and gave him a concussion, of course, knocked him out. So somebody had tweeted that he was in karma protocol when he was taken out. But, of course, nobody wants anybody to get hurt, including him. But he did get ruled out for the game. I believe they said he had a concussion. And so Chris Nowinski was putting up videos. And for those that don't know, he used to wrestle in WWE and, had to retire. And he's done a lot of concussion research for the NFL. But, Vito, you took issue with certain routes that he's taken as far as concussion research and helping former wrestlers like he does WWE. So set the stage, what your relationship is with Nowinski, what conversations you've had with him, and how it ties in to everything you're trying to fight for former wrestlers with CTE.
Well, guys, here it goes. Like my relationship with Chris Nowinski is zero. My conversations with Chris Nowinski has been zero. Chris Nowinski was diagnosed with concussion syndrome, from what I believe, and he had to retire from wrestling, knowing that he possibly could have CTE. So he opens up the Concussion Legacy, the Legacy Foundation, which is funded by the WWE, and he starts the program. So this is around 2004, 5, 6, 7, and on. So there he goes, and he does his stuff. And, you know, CTE does exist in the world, and everything, you know, everybody knows that, like, you know, like for myself, I thought that you had to get knocked out to have a concussion, which you don't. It's many blows to the head, you know, and you know, when you get struck in the head and you take night after night, you keep repeated, it's like being in a car crash every night. So, I mean, it takes its toll. Long story short, his Legacy Foundation is being funded by the WWE. Triple H has a seat on the Legacy Foundation. So there are 2 wrestlers there. And then there's a concussion lawsuit, 4 wrestlers against the WWE. And if Chris Nowinski suffered from these things because he wrote a book and he documented his stuff, and he also had these symptoms and he got help for them, and he's trying to take care of his own, why isn't he trying to help the wrestlers? And why hasn't he done anything for the wrestlers in the concussion lawsuit? Why hasn't he done anything to enhance the wrestlers, to start something, to offer an olive branch, to do something for wrestlers? Why hasn't he done that? When he was working with Dr. Omalu, which is the original doctor, everything was peaches and cream, and then they had a split, and then they had a nasty separation. Everybody knows that Dr. Omalu is the famous doctor from the movie Concussion, and he's the one who did all the research for concussion syndrome, CTE. Now, when you get on here on Chris Nowinski's Twitter page, now I'm not bashing the guy, and I'm not knocking him, okay? I'm not saying anything bad about him, okay? So this is not anything. I'm against what his beliefs are. If you're saying that you for CTE, concussions, this, that, and former WWE superstar, and CTE, why aren't you helping the guys who have the lawsuit with the WWE? You're a wrestler. I'm a wrestler. There are other guys who are wrestlers. There's another 50, 60 guys who are wrestlers. So when it comes to the LaGrasso Singleton case, which are in settlement talks that are sitting in court with my lawyer, you know, Constantine Kairos, and we're waiting to settle the case, and then a news breaking story comes out that hits all over, that you can read at www.concussionlawsuitsnews.com. Okay, it's a blog that has it's a WWE Concussion Lawsuit blog, and it says WWE funded CTE study proves wrestlers lawsuit. WWE, Nowinski, and BU doctors remain silent. Now, if this study is funded by the WWE, this is the second one, and guys, when you go to the blog, read the blog and go down, and you'll see the events that have happened in this lawsuit. When you read this, guys, and you see everything that has happened, and you look at what's going on, why hasn't there been a settlement, and why haven't we moved past this? If the WWE is funding these studies, and if they're coming up with positive notes that it does exist and these things do happen and everything is, and then on the bottom, guys, I'm just going to read you like some of the people who are quoted here. CNN, it's not a concussion that causes CTE. It's repeated hits, a study finds. Los Angeles Times, forget concussions. The real risk of CTE comes from repeated hits to the head, study shows. CBS Sports Study, CTE caused by repeated hits to the head, even those that don't cause concussions. Daily Mail UK, concussion is a red herring for CTE. Major study shows repeated hits, even mild ones, are the real problem. Boston University has found the biggest problem for CTE is the way the head is hit, not the concussion. Concussion is to CTE what is a cough to a lung cancer. It does not predict it, and treating it does not prevent it. The paper is the clearest evidence to date of causal links between football tackles and CTE and suggests there is no way to prevent it. Now, with these headlines, should that point out that the WWE, unlike the NFL, is continuing to deny the science that continues to deny any help. Money to or the research to address the health crisis for CTE is directly responsible for among the wrestlers. How come there is nobody doing anything for the wrestlers? It's all documented. It's proven, but we are still in settlement talks. I am the lead case in this lawsuit. So I'm sitting here waiting. This study comes out, another study. Everybody, this hit Boston News. This hit world news. This wasn't like a little article. This is world renowned. So, guys, the question is, when I see Christopher Nowinski, who does a great job for the Legacy Foundation, who does good work for himself and the NFL and doing his thing, why isn't he concentrating on the wrestlers? That's my beef. If you're so much into CTE and helping others, why do you ignore the wrestlers? Why don't you help the wrestlers? Why don't you invite these wrestlers, start a program for the wrestlers? Since the WWE does fund the Legacy Foundation, why isn't there anything in place for us? Why isn't there a place to go? This has been sitting for 3.5 years. Now it's 3.5 years. Most times these things are already settled. I'm still waiting. The people are still waiting. Everybody's wanting to know. Now with this article that came out, what do we do with this? How can Chris Nowinski say that he knows about CTE and all this stuff, but he ignores the wrestlers? That thing that's done. This is just what's taken from when you look at things. I'm not saying he's an XYZ or nothing. Like I said, people, he does good work. He's built a brand for himself. He's built the Legacy Foundation. He's done stuff. But when it comes to wrestling and CTE, there is a closed mouth, and there is nothing documented from him. Even though he had a book, even though he said things in the past, even though he did give great interviews and great insights, and he has great knowledge, but he doesn't help the wrestlers today.
Now, does the NFL or any other organizations fund his research, or is the WWE the only major company that does?
Well, the WWE is part of the funding. So if they're funding this for the information, to gather information, that means they have to have an inkling that there is CTE in wrestling. Why would you put money out for funding for information if you don't, if it doesn't exist in your world? Obviously it does.
So has he been called as a witness or anything in this lawsuit at all? I don't know if you're even allowed to talk about that. Is he involved at all in this?
He did. He was supposed to give a deposition, and he fought giving one. But he should have been deposed. He was part of he is part of the lawsuit in some small way. He is. He has a guy who's a wrestler. He's got the Legacy Foundation. He has all the information, but refuses to share it. Now, what are you going to do with that? But when you see him tweet on hits and people taking hits and concussions, okay. If you're that interested and you're a former wrestler, why aren't you helping the wrestlers? That is what got me irritated today. And that was, it would irritate you as well if you're, okay, guys, if you're a podcaster and you podcast and you hurt your head on the microphone, you get a concussion, the podcast union should do something to help you because you got hurt on the job. So you go to the hospital, you do what you got to do and get taken care of. What do we have? We don't have anything. The wellness policy is for drugs and alcohol, not CTE.
So why do you think he's not that focused on wrestling as he is on the NFL?
Well, opinions say that, maybe you're not allowed to talk about it. Maybe you're not allowed to research it as far as in the wrestling industry. As everybody knows, if he goes and has findings in wrestling and he has to publicize it because he's with BU, so wouldn't that make him an adversary to the wrestlers who have the problems, even though the WWE is funding his legacy foundation?
So perhaps if he found that WWE was negligent or at fault, there goes his funding. That's a lot of theories out there. Who knows if that's true or not? But it's hard not to look at it that way. It seems like a conflict of interest.
But the best part about it is that Triple H has a seat on the legacy foundation. So if Triple H has the seat on the foundation, and he's the CEO of the company, why don't we have any solutions, or why is the lawsuit still going on?
How much different do you think this would be if there was a wrestlers union, if wrestlers were treated like any other employee of any other business out there? Like, would you even be this far into the lawsuit, or would it be over already and there would be changes?
If there was a union and there was benefits and there were things in place, it would have been done already. There's no workman comp for wrestlers. If they say you're a private contractor, okay, then how come when you work for a company, the WWE, how come you're not allowed to take bookings and go do other stuff? So are you a private contractor or you're not a private contractor? Do you work directly for the WWE or don't you? If you're a private contractor, you should be able to go do X, Y, and Z and take indie bookings, but you're not allowed to because you're owned and work for the WWE. So that's what they get. Plus, there's other things that are involved. But, I mean, when you look at that, there's no workman's comp for the WWE. There's no health benefits for the WWE. Wrestlers have to provide their own health benefits. So, but I'd like to say if there is a wellness policy, why would there be a wellness policy for WWE employees if you were never considered an employee and you were a private contractor? Does that make sense to anybody?
Right. So, and I was reading what you were talking about from that website. And did I read that correctly that Paul Orndorff has been diagnosed officially?
Yes, Paul Orndorff has been diagnosed. Now, with all the wrestlers that have died from CTE, Mr. Fuji, Snooker, Balls Mahoney, Axel Rotten, what's his name? He was with I can't think of his name. Dunn. He was with Well Done, the guy from Well Done. Not I can't think of his name, but he also died from the same thing. So I mean, when you talk about you have 5 for 5, you know what I mean? Plus Test, Andrew Martin, plus Chris Benoit. That's 7 guys who died from CTE.
Now, did Mike Awesome have it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I don't remember reading if he was diagnosed with that or
but
not.
Guys, when you have these symptoms of Alzheimer's, dementia, suicide, you deal with the headaches, you deal with the nightmares, you deal with the trauma, you deal with a whole bunch of other things, sleep apnea. Guys, it's all part of the same thing. It doesn't happen right then. It takes years of accumulation. But when it comes to light, that's when you need the help. So, I mean, what do you do? How do people get help? How do former wrestlers get help? So when you see somebody tweeting that they're a former WWE superstar and they're CTE and concussions and everything, if you have this great legacy foundation, why aren't you helping any of the guys who have? Why aren't you helping anybody? Or you pick and choose who you want to help?
Yeah, it's hard not to look at it and get the impression that, WWE is kind of covering their own butts here by financing this thing, and he's kind of looking the other way. I mean, that's the impression anyway. Of course, you hope that that's not the case and that he would look at everything fairly and try to help the wrestlers.
You would hope so. And I'm not accusing him of doing anything. I'm not accusing him of being a certain way. I'm not making fun of him. I'm not saying, I'm just giving him my opinion. But I mean, you write down on your Twitter that you're doing these great things and look at the hit and look at this and look at that. What about the guys who you bumped heads with? What about the guys who need the help? What about the guys you wrestled with who you're supposed to be your buddies? You know what I mean? And guys, it's a brotherhood. You know what I mean? It's a union of guys. You know, they call you brother for a reason. You know what I mean? It's a family. But you went through it. You documented that you had it. You said you fixed the problem. You said you deal with it. You wrote books on it. You have all this information. But then you turn your back on the guys who deal with the same problems you have? How could you do that? I'm not knocking the guy. You know what I mean? Like I said, he does great work. He probably has helped other people, but he's not helping the wrestling industry. And that's what gets me upset.
Now, Mr. Kairos has been working on this for what, over 3 years now? I think
3.5 years.
Yeah,
yes.
It's been a really long process. And I don't know what you're allowed to talk about and what you're not, but I know this has been a long process for you as well, with your name on it and leading the charge, you know, you and Singleton and doing the fight. And I know you took a lot of flack for it initially. You seemed people would call you out. You were the guy going against the WWE, but at the end you were trying to stick up for your fellow wrestlers and doing this thing. What has this been like for you, like for these 3.5 years?
It's been very hard, especially dealing with, you know, the issues. You know, I know I come on here and I do a podcast and like everybody reads my Twitter and reads my stuff. I try to be cheery every day. I try to be happy, try to have a positive attitude, but I deal with the symptoms, you know what I mean? And when this first started, I mean, it was world news. It was world news. It was all over the place. So like, okay, now what's up? I'm like, you deal with this, but when you have grown men crying when they're calling you and asking you for help, and you're trying to get them help, and you're listening to their problems, and you're trying to, you know, I'll give you a guy who called me. His name is Axel Rotten. Everybody knows him, Axel, right? He was saying he had nobody to help him. He was in the hospital. He's dealing with a bunch of things, you know, and I called him. I said, bro, I said, what's the matter? I said, tell me, how can I help you? And he broke down crying to me. He said, Vito, I can't take it no more. I'm just having a hard time. My body's giving out. I'm having all these issues. I tried to get him help. You know what I mean? And, you know, sadly, one of the things that happens when you have CTE? Suicide. People kill themselves. Junior Seau. Who's the guy? Hernandez, who's just in jail.
Aaron
You
Hernandez.
got Chris Benoit. Perfect example. He was diagnosed with CTE. So if you're talking about what you have to look forward to as you get older, suicide, dementia, Alzheimer's. You look at Kamala, right? Now, Kamala, he had amputation of his legs. Okay. He needed a wheelchair. You would think a certain company would help out and reach out and give that man a wheelchair. It was Coco Beware who got him the wheelchair he needed. After years of service in a certain company, you would think they would reach out to him and say, you know what, we'll help you. You know, here you go. That wasn't the case. Man was an amputee. Another wrestler, I could tell you, Iron Mike Sharp died alone in Canada in a basement apartment. Horrible. It's horrible what some guys are going through. You see Paul Orndorff. You look at Jimmy Snuka, okay? He just passed away. Some issues with him from before, but you know, I know, anybody was there at that particular moment or knew what happened. But he still had a rough life and he still had all the symptoms and he was diagnosed with CTE. Mr. Fuji had this same thing. So if all these wrestlers are having this and all these people are diagnosed with this who are wrestlers, then how come we are not getting help and why isn't this settled? Why is this not, you know, going any further? You're having the WWE, you know, do these studies and getting this information. They're paying for the information. They're paying for the knowledge. Okay, so now you have it. I just read you the list. So what does that tell you, people? That it does exist. It does. Why would the WWE give money to a legacy foundation and they don't help the wrestlers? I don't know. You tell me. Put your heads together. Come up with an answer. If there's no program at BU for the wrestlers and there's no program in place for the guys who do have this, then where do we go? How do we help each other? How do we get help? Same thing with the NFL, right? NFL had a problem. They got it solved. The NHL, they had a problem. They got it solved. The NCAA had a problem. They didn't even wait for it to become a problem. They said, okay, here we go. We're going to fix this. Let's move on. That's pretty big. And then there's probably soccer and a bunch of other sports that have the same issues that it will come up. Well, how do you handle it? You take care of it. It's that simple.
Well, a lot of the detractors or the naysayers, one of the things that they always say is wrestlers know what they're getting into. It's a violent job. It's not ballet. It's like you're going to get hit. This going in. So my question to you is what is the way to go to have professional wrestling, but to eliminate concussions and head blows and CTE? What is the way, do you think, to do that so people can live healthy lives after they hang up their boots?
When people make this comment, oh, you knew what you were getting into. How could you know about CTE if you weren't educated on it? How could you know about this if nobody had any pamphlets or books, or if the office you work for or the company you work for didn't provide this information for you? How could you learn about something or know about this if you did not have the education, the outlets that we have now through social media and everything else? Really, and my understanding of a concussion, and this is the truth, Vito, what did you think, what did you think a concussion was? Well, I thought when you had a concussion, you had to get knocked out. Untrue. So I'm saying, yeah, I've never been knocked out. So I never had a concussion. Bull. I've had concussions. I didn't know it. And when I went to an examination, they said you're estimated to have anywhere from 200 to thousands of concussions. That's a lot of concussions. That's a lot of head blows. That's a lot of stuff. And when they give me these tests that I had with the neurologist and all this stuff, I have it. I mean, I have the TMJ. I have, the headaches. I have the sleep apnea. I have other things wrong, and the nightmares and all that. So what do you do with it? How do you help yourself? They want you to try to go out and do something with where you could reprogram your brain or redo that. Where do you go for this? Is there a place you can go? Do we have anybody who's going to pay for the medical care? Is there a place that we can go to get help? Is anybody going to help us? No. So we have to just suffer with the injuries.
Yeah, and that new study that you mentioned where it said that you don't need concussions to get CTE, just hard blows to the head or repeated blows to the head can lead to CTE. That's really scary when you think about all the stuff that could even go wrong accidentally in wrestling. Like, over your very long career, you did almost every type of match possible. You did the hardcore matches. You've been hit with objects. What part of, was there any specific match or any specific moves or bumps that you took looking back that you thought, that was probably one of them, or that was one that probably did it, or this guy hit me in the head when he wasn't supposed to? Do you remember any specific instances?
There are specific matches that I remember that I did get hit, and there are probably ones that I don't remember. They're there. And when you asked about how do you protect yourself in wrestling, how do you guys do it? I mean, guys, it's a work, and the adrenaline, and you see the action in the ring. Tucking your head when you're training. You should wear a helmet because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how you bag your head. Where you're going to fall. When guys come up in the business, they're green. They want to get in there and they want to do clothesline. They want to do this. Want to jump off the top rope. They want to do a table spot. How about learning the basics? How about protecting your head? How about protecting your face? Because that's the important thing. You're going to get banged around in your arms, your chest, your legs and everything. But your head, your eyes, your ears, those are the most important things you have to protect, because those are the things that are going to hurt you in the long run. Is there a way to pinpoint how to protect yourself throughout wrestling? Probably not. I mean, like unless they come up with a simple device, no headshots, no this, no that. You just saw the curb stomp, brought back or mistakenly brought back this past Monday night, right? So that was one of the moves that was banned because of the lawsuit, and they said no more curb stomp than it appears. Now, if you're a child and you want to be Seth Rollins and you see your brother on all fours and you decide you're going to jump up and curb stomp his head, do you think that child is going to get hurt? And you think there's a possible concussion there? Possible broken nose, possible cut the eye, banging your head on the concrete if you're outside, on the dirt if you're inside, or even if you're playing on the street and a kid runs up and goes to give him a curb start on a concrete. What happens then? Moves are emulated and done. And I know if you're not professional, you're not supposed to do them, but these kids copy these things. They did away with chair shots to the head, which is great. Kendo stick shots to the head, which helps. Can you protect yourself in every other thing? I don't know, because I'm not at the company and I don't know what they're preaching. I'm just looking at the outside. I'm not there. I don't know. I can't say. But can you protect yourself? I'm sure there are ways you can. You're supposed to work with each other. You're supposed to not hurt each other. You're supposed to help protect each other. But the wrestling that you're watching, I'm watching, the viewers out there are watching, you see some of it is reckless. A lot of it is hard. The guy's getting rocked. And a lot of times, you could tell when somebody's knocked off their feet and they got their bell rung.
Disco Inferno said numerous times that he feels that if you get injured or you injure somebody else because you are being reckless or careless, that you should be suspended without pay. How do you feel about that? It doesn't seem like there's ever punishment for hurting somebody. It just seems like, oh, that's just part of the job type deal. We look at Paige recently. We look at Jeff Hardy getting his teeth kicked out. I mean, maybe there has been, and it's just never been publicized, but I can't think of a time when somebody was suspended or, maybe put on the shelf for a bit because they were careless and hurt somebody else.
Well, Seth Rollins took out 3 people, didn't he? He took out Sting, took out Finn Balor, and then he took out one other guy. Who else
Cena.
Did he take out? He took out Cena, okay? You had Samoa Joe. He took out Rollins, and then didn't he hurt somebody down in NXT?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
But then you have who else? There was another guy.
Tommy just hurt Kendrick pretty bad.
Okay. Now the teeth get knocked out with Sheamus, Cesaro, and the Hardys. But you're knocking somebody's teeth out. You're kicking them pretty damn hard. And the Hardy Boys have been at this for a long time, so they're no rookies. They're no J-Bos. And in Sheamus and Cesaro are no J-Bos either. But, things happen in the ring. When Nakamura dropped Cena on his head, first thing he says, oh, my God, I'm sorry. And Vince probably had a heart attack in the back. He's watching this. And you notice that Nakamura's push stopped. It stopped. And then for the one guy who spoke up, Baron Corbin, who is a former NFL player, who is actually in the concussion lawsuit for the NFL, when the doctor was speaking in the meeting and he told him, listen, you're not giving us the right information because it's this, this, and this. And there was a little disagreement. And then it was found out afterwards that Baron Corbin, ex-NFL football player, is a member of the concussion lawsuit for the NFL. And if you guys remember, punishment, he got to give up his money in the bank. He got de-pushed. He got jobbed out. Then because of the fan base, all of a sudden he got the title back, but then it was lackluster going into the pay-per-view with The Miz. He beat The Miz, and then he lost it the next night. So I really didn't know. Should guys be penalized? Should guys be punished? I think it would put them on notice. I think it would be good for the business if there was a punishment. You put somebody out, you're out as long as that guy with no pay. Okay, so now all of a sudden you got something in place. Now, if you hurt another guy the second time, you go back to NXT and relearn your craft. And we live on NXT money. The third time, you're fired. How many guys can you hurt? How many times are we going to tell you? Be careful in the ring. The thing with Paige and the thing with Sasha Banks. Now, everybody asked on that, and Jeff, I know you covered it, and me and Vince covered it also. But my view on it is, okay, if a person has a spine and neck injury, you don't hit them directly in the back. Now, she was hit directly in the back. Who is the fault of that? Now, if the company's looking after the individual, aren't the agents supposed to know she has a spine injury, supposed to have a neck injury? Do not hit her directly in the back. It's easier to take a flat bump than a front bump because you can't brace yourself from a back bump. So you have to be face-to-face when you see it coming. It's easy to protect yourself. If you're getting it from the back, you don't know where it's coming. You don't know the impact you're getting. And now look at Paige. She could possibly be out. The same thing with Daniel Bryan when he had that seizure. Who knows how hard he got hit? But if you remember, he was having a convulsion out on ringside. And that's when they said, okay, we got to freaking take notice. He's still trying to get cleared. He's still trying to get back into wrestling. But if he doesn't wrestle for WWE and he lets his contract run out, everybody knows where he's going. He's going to go to Wrestle Kingdom. He's going to team up with Ring of Honor. He's going to go back to wrestling because he says his doctors are clearing him. And then the WWE doctors are saying, you're not cleared. So what do you do? Okay, do we take a chance? Do we settle the lawsuit? If we settle the lawsuit, we can bring him back. If we let his contract run out, he's going to go wrestle for somebody else and get hurt. And then we'll settle the lawsuit and we'll get this taken care of. So it's like, okay, it's a shit or get off the pot. So instead of making Daniel Bryan come back, now what happens? The WWE lawsuit gets settled. Daniel Bryan goes and wrestles for another company. Then he comes back and says, okay, this is why I got hurt. Now, WWE already told him, listen, don't go wrestle, but he wrestled on his own. So is WWE held responsible if they already tried to help him? That's a good legal question. You know, where do you go with it?
Yeah. What do you think about other companies, though, like smaller companies like Impact, Ring of Honor, even some indie companies? Like if they're negligent, like one big goof could, theoretically put these companies out of business. Like, how do you think they fit into this whole concussion protocol? And do you know if they even care on the indie level to prevent these types of injuries?
Okay, now if you're looking at the indie level and you're looking at that, now this is something you got to look at, guys. If there's no ambulance on the premises for your health safety, think twice before you get in there. If there's no doctor on the premises for your health safety, think twice before you get in there. If the guy doesn't make you, now this is the truth because it's legal. No, now I'm going to enlighten everybody. If you do not sign a waiver and you get hurt at somebody's show, that promoter has an insurance policy that is for the wrestlers who get hurt. If you get hurt and don't do anything and go to a hospital, the promoter is responsible for your health, is responsible for you. You can be sued. If you sign a waiver and a document that says I'm wrestling here, my own recognizance or whatever legal things they can have, then the promoter is protecting himself.
What's your recommendation on that? What's your recommendation on that for the wrestlers?
Guys, wrestling is a tough business, and wrestling is it's a business. You have to learn how to wrestle. Back when I broke in, you had to learn how to wrestle. There wasn't the business side. The business side you learn later. Now it's business, it's wrestling, business, healthcare. So now you have healthcare. Now you have possible union. Now you have possible, other outlets. Social media is very grand right now. So for all you guys out there, what does it take for you to say, well, if I get hurt, what will happen to me? Do you have an ambulance? Do you have a doctor? Do you have this? Most promoters are cheap and they don't want to pay. So what do? You know, listen, this is what we're doing. We're paying you $20. You go in the ring, do your thing. Now, for the other companies, like I just watched an Impact match. I just happened to be flipping. I seen them doing hardcore. Hardcore is and they're beating the hell out of each other. They had barbed wire. They had that's garbage. That's not wrestling. But they were doing it to try and draw ratings. Was there any of these things there? Did these guys sign a waiver? Did these guys get busted open? What happens if somebody got a concussion? Will that company take care of them? They're doing hardcore. Did you sign the waiver that said we're not liable? Guys, if you get hurt at a wrestling show, you get hurt at a wrestling company, you are permitted to sue this promoter if there is no waiver, no contract, no nothing. And because he's by law supposed to have an ambulance, supposed to have a doctor, supposed to have insurance. You go wrestle under these conditions, you've been told.
So because I'm not sure how this waiver deal works. I've never wrestled. I've never promoted. So I don't know how this all works. So are you saying that some promoters will have waivers for the talents to sign? And if that is the case, well, like say a new person's going in there to wrestle and they're going to get $10 and they're presented, you have to sign this waiver. You can't wrestle. Like, does that happen? And like, so what would you tell to a wrestler? What's your advice to that wrestler sitting there? Should they sign it and wrestle or should they not?
Guys, what's worth more, your health, your life, or the $10 you're making for wrestling at a shit show? There's your answer. If you break your neck at this show because you want to be a wrestler, okay, what did you make at that show? $10. What they have you do? They have me jump off a balcony. So you jumped off a balcony for $10 just so you could say, oh, brother, I'm a wrestler. You know, look what I did. I jumped off a balcony. I'm hardcore. There are no more hardcore guys. Guys, hardcore is passé. Doesn't belong anymore. If you listen to what the industry is saying, it's an independent, it's entertainment business. Okay. Now, if we're an entertainment business, here's another thing I'd like to bring up. If it's an entertainment business, why do we have drug testing? If we're entertainers, we're not athletes, we're not sports people. We're entertainers. We're actors. So why do you have drug testing? Why do you have to test for steroids? Don't you want to have your body look good? Don't you want to have all this stuff good? So there's your fight. You know, hey, so it's either you play by my rules or go play somebody else. You either do as I say or go somewhere else. And those are the things that you look at, guys. So when you look at this in a whole, you know, you could take a precautionary measure to make sure you're going to be okay and then make it in the wrestling business, or you're going to be some guy who wants to wrestle in the backyard and do all these stupid things that don't mean anything and break your leg and break your arm, crack your head open and go through glass. I never could understand the light bulb thing and jumping on thumbtacks and doing all that because I never did it. I never was into that stuff. But Vince McMahon once told me, and this is a true story, we were looking for something for me. You know, I was looking, said, Vince, you know, I did hardcore in WCW. He says, Vito, you're too good of a wrestler to do hardcore. Guys who do hardcore, 9 times out of 10, can't wrestle. And the guys who know how to wrestle, they know how to do it correctly when they're doing hardcore. So, I mean, it's a 50-50 thing. You either go by the rules or go somewhere else. You're either going to play by this set of stuff or don't play at all. And 9 times out of 10, because guys are so gullible because they want to be wrestlers. I got to get in there, brother. I got to do this, brother. I got to be this, brother. And just to say the word brother for the word night, you have no idea what the word brother means. You're just saying it. And, you know, Hulk Hogan never jumped off a friggin' balcony. Hulk Hogan never did any of this stuff. Hulk Hogan never did a light bulb match. Never jumped off a scaffold. So if Hulk Hogan, the man who invented brother, or was the most famous for it, why wouldn't you follow his lead and go be a wrestler?
and there's a lot of updates. I know you didn't read the whole thing because it's so long and a lot of good stuff. Where can they keep up with the lawsuit information that you were reading earlier? What's that website again?
That's WWE Concussion Lawsuit News.com. Guys, go there, read it, look what's going on, see what's happening, understand what we're going through. The fight is real. The case is still open. I am the lead case in a concussion lawsuit with the WWE. We've been in settlement talks. Nothing has happened. There's some new findings where WWE funded research again, and now everybody's QT. This is world news. It's been out in the press. It's been out everywhere. Guys, read the blog. It's out there. Guys, look for us. Help make this come to a conclusion, because you can't just have something sitting there in a court and, playing a politic game. And especially with guys who are supposed to be former wrestlers who have the power to help other people, why not step up and help them? What are you afraid of?
All right, Vito, any final thoughts or anything you want to plug before we wrap up this week?
All right, guys, you can go to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is at the Big Vito Brand. Go to Twitter at the Big Vito Brand. On Facebook, the Big Vito Brand. Collar and elbow, use the Big Vito code. That's Big Vito. Go get yourself a Signature Series shirt. And then we are on ProWrestlingTees.com/the Big Vito Brand. We have shirts over there as well. Really, guys, if you think about it, this has been a very educational show. I'm sorry if people, I know it's not the usual, but this is something that needed to be said and spoken about, because it really did get to me tonight when somebody who could help out the wrestlers is tweeting about stuff. And I read his Twitter, hey, I'm a former WWE superstar, CTE concussions. Well, help out the industry that helped you get here and do the right thing by the boys. We need your help. Help make this a final thing. Help make a great institution. Help be a part of the cure for wrestlers, and help be part of the pot. Not be a part of the problem, but the solution.
So everybody, make sure to check out WWE Concussion Lawsuit News.com. You're going to get all the updates and all the information going on with this lawsuit, the concussion lawsuit. There's a lot of good stuff there if you want to be educated on everything that Vito's been going through for the last 3.5 years, and Mr. Kairos and Mr. Singleton and everybody that's fighting hard for all the injured professional wrestlers that have passed away or that are suffering today. That's WWE Concussion Lawsuit News.com. And remember, this Wednesday, the 24th, get a free month of the Realm Network, the brand on the Realm Network. Just go to russosbrand.com. It's Vince's birthday, January 24th. Sign up that day to get a free month. For Big Vito, the star of Getting Color, I am Jeff Lane. We will see you tomorrow, everybody.
Hold on, Jeff. Before you go, we got one more plug.
Let's hear it.
What's the name of that show again?
Spilling the Teen Mom Tea.
There's a new show on Podcast One, Spilling Teen Mom Tea. The Mom Tea. All right.
Spilling the Teen Mom Tea, yes. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but even Vince can't remember the name of that show. Every time he sends it to me, he puts Sipping the Teen Mom Tea, and I always have to change it to Spilling the Teen Mom Tea. But that's on every Saturday now on Podcast One.
It's on every Saturday on Podcast One. It's a new hot show. They got a lot of good interviews. They got a lot of good people from the cast who are starting to come out, and saying this friggin' show is just like saying Vita Vita Vegemin.
Yeah, and if you're a brand listener and you know somebody that loves Teen Mom, you need to tell them about this show. We've already gotten a lot of feedback from brand members who are like, you know what, I don't watch Teen Mom, but my wife does, or my friend does, or my brother does, and they're telling them about it, and they end up loving the podcast. So help out Vince and Noel and spread the word to all your friends that are Teen Mom fans.
Yeah, you know how it is when you got to give the rub to the new shows on the brand, hooking them up and everything, because my show's been here a while. We're doing good. We're holding our own.
That's right. Well, Vince should be back tomorrow. Let's hope he's doing well with the flu. And we will see you then, everybody. Have a good one.
All right, take it easy.